So you're running for Senate, and right now, to my knowledge, there are three progressives in that race, yourself being one of them. There is you, Pat Harris, Allison Hartson. I am not super familiar with Pat Harris. I know you guys are colleagues and buddies, but based on what I've been told about him, I know a lot of people that think he's really great. I was not at that event where you won the endorsement, but I heard he had a good showing as well. Based on what I know about you, based on what I know about Allison Hartson, I'd be happy to vote for either one of you. I think both of you are worthy of a vote. You both stand for the policies I like to see. You both, I think, would be good things for the state of California. What I'm nervous about, and I think a lot of people are nervous about, is that the progressive vote is going to be split three ways, and then neither of you are going to make the runoff. And I really don't want to have to hold my nose and vote for De Leon to prevent Feinstein. I don't want to have to do that. So what are your thoughts on that? Because that is the glaring reality we're faced with.
So I mentioned to people that I started running in March. A lot of people try to counter that. My opponents try to counter that by saying, well, just because you got in first doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean that you're the best candidate and this and that. But the fact of the matter, and why I mentioned that, is because before anyone else got into the race, I was already kicking it off and traveling around the state. So Pat got in pretty early as well, and we were both traveling the state. So there was actually, in the past, there was 4 progressive candidates. Michael Eisen out in Berkeley, Topher Brennan in the Silicon Valley, who actually dropped out, and then me and Pat. So there was 4 progressives in the race. So a lot of people have asked me and have asked Pat and have asked all the candidates and people around them that are running, what was Justice Democrats thinking? I don't know what they were thinking. I think that they made a mistake. If they didn't want to endorse in the race, then just don't endorse. And a lot of people watching know the background that went on with that endorsement process. But at the end of the day, here's where we are. So when it comes down to it, I encourage people to watch not only the Feel the Burn debate, but other interviews that we've had, especially Uphill Media has a Progressive California show. They're just kicking off, really low key. But me and Allison both went on that show. So I encourage you to watch both of our interviews there. I encourage you to watch the debate and make up your own minds. I'm for democracy. So I'm for people, actually deciding on their own. I could tell you anything I want about Allison or Pat or anyone else in the race. But at the end of the day, it's going to be you that decides who you think is the best to vote for. So I would just do your homework, just watch those videos, the Uphill Media videos and the other one, the debate, and decide, who you really think will stand up against Feinstein, who you think can stand up against Feinstein. Because like I said, if you ask me or Allison or Pat, we're all going to have biased, opinions about who's the best and who's not the best. So all I can do is just keep my head down and keep barreling forward. We're doing a lot. We're actually beat our fundraising record, our monthly fundraising record. In the first 6 days of this month, we've made almost double what we have in any other month. So we're actually taking off. We're picking up a lot of endorsements. So I think that I hope, I guess I should say, that this is naturally going to sift itself out over the next month. But politics is fickle, so we're going to see what happens. But hopefully within the next month, we'll have more natural answers for this question. But at this point, I mean, way back in March, I promised people who supported me very early on, they said, well, if you just drop out and endorse somebody else that you don't feel can really do the job or don't feel can beat Feinstein, then I'm going to be really upset with you. And just someone the other day made a donation to me and said, hey, the last person I donated to dropped out in 2 weeks. And I told them that I would not drop out until the primary, until the people had their vote and had their say. So I'm in this to win this. I've been in this to win this from the beginning. If I didn't believe that there was a path to victory for our campaign, I would have dropped out. But I believe that there's still a path there. So there's a lot going on in the background that's going to sift itself out. And there's a lot going on publicly that's going to sift itself out. And we might not have to worry about the decision in the next month. But I would love to revisit that question in a month if it still hasn't been solved.
Well, then what are the hypotheticals of this sifting itself out? I mean, if you have 3 candidates that are refusing to run for something else, I mean, what is a hypothetical where it would be sifted out then?
It's a little late to run for anything else, really. I mean, we even have progressives that are backing Kevin De Leon despite his corporate donations and super PAC. And that's, that's very problematic because, I mean, we fought in 2016 for non-corporate donations. So, I mean, sifting it out, I mean, just the endorsement processes for different Our Revolution groups. DSA may not have time to get endorsements out, unfortunately, this year. They're still organizing their endorsement process. Personal endorsements, I mean, those say a lot. I've been endorsed by Gail McLaughlin and Jovanka Beckles of Richmond Progressive Alliance. So you can't get much closer to Bernie than Gail McLaughlin without actually having Bernie's endorsement. So that was a really important one for us. And she actually came to me very early on and endorsed me. And we've been doing a lot of touring together as well. And I think that the candidate, and obviously this is my own bias, but it is our strategy as well. And I think that I can actually reach across the aisle better than other candidates. And I believe that I'm going to fight the hardest among the three progressive candidates against Feinstein and De Leon. And I believe I've shown that already. We've actually fielded commercials in 4 different cities in California, tearing down Feinstein and Kevin De Leon for their corporate donations. So we've already been on MSNBC with commercials on our limited money that we have. So, I mean, getting out there and fighting and getting out there to all the areas and being in the progressive movement with the Bernie campaign and with several other campaigns since. I mean, I've been on the ground fighting like for not just for this campaign, but for the progressive movement in general. So you have to ask yourself, where has everyone else in this race been? What have they done? And look into their backgrounds, because I can offer you a lot of information. I can offer you a lot of nuance. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's not going to be me that decides what mark or what box you check at the end of the day. So in the utopian, vision, we'd all sift out and we'd all decide, oh, we're going to put this person forward and we're going to, all rally around this one person, which I'd like to see happen. But at the same time, is that really democracy if, a relative handful of people decide who goes forward? So that's another issue that you have. If you have just a small handful of people, gathering in a group and endorsing someone, putting them forward, that's not really democracy. That goes back to the smoky back rooms like the Democratic Party wants again.
So just totally for the record, let's say in a hypothetical that one of the 3 of you pulls out ahead, and it is not you, just for hypothetical sake. There's no way you would drop out.
If it became very, very obvious to the point where I shouldn't be in the race at all because that's how far I'd fallen compared to the others, then I could see myself dropping out and endorsing one of the others. Obviously, it would be Pat or Allison. I have no hesitation endorsing Pat Harris. I have some hesitation in endorsing Allison, but because from what I've seen from her, she doesn't have enough of a grasp on issues and she isn't willing to fight hard enough against Feinstein because she hasn't fought against Feinstein. She doesn't have, how do you describe it? She doesn't have the fire in her to actually do what needs to be done, in my opinion. Obviously, that's my biased opinion. But at the end of the day, I mean, if one of us 3 went forward, not Kevin De Leon, but if one of us 3 went forward, then yes, I would endorse them. I would drop out. But we have to remember that signing up for like this week, I'm going today and dropping off a huge stack of signature sheets. Just from Sacramento, we've been around the state collecting signatures. So, I mean, a lot of volunteers on my campaign have been doing a lot of work. So I don't think that scenario is going to rise up to where someone's going to pull out ahead and it's not going to be our campaign because we've been on the ground everywhere. So if you look at the voting that went on in the field of burn, I think that's kind of how I feel about the race. I think once people really realize what Kevin De Leon's about, then that won't become an issue anymore. We have a small handful of people really pushing hard to try to get progressives on board, but progressives aren't dumb. We do our homework and we know where he's accepted money from in the past and we know where he's going to accept money from and what he's going to do in the future. So just a little background, recently in the pre-endorsements, this is an inter-party thing, but basically you can block an incumbent from getting the endorsement automatically from the party by going to a pre-endorsement caucus and voting against them and voting for somebody else, or just trying to get them off of that consent calendar for the Democratic Convention, which is coming up at the end of February. So Kevin De Leon sent 19 of his appointed delegates out of 30 to protect Richard Pan in Sacramento. So Richard Pan is a senator in Sacramento that abstained from SB 562, but his abstention was actually a no vote because he gave a several minutes long lecture to everyone about how horrible SB 562 was and how it wasn't going to work. So Kevin De Leon is voting yes on SB 562, but then he's shielding people who voted against it and spoke against it and who are still fighting against it. So Richard Pan is a problem. We have someone locally that's going to run against him, Brad Westmoreland, and we tried to get him on the ballot as well, and unfortunately we failed because of the shenanigans in the Democratic Party of California.
All right, so we got a lot of questions here. I'm going to get to some of them, but yeah, I appreciate that insight. And also, just for the record, David, because there was one or two people on Twitter, and I think I cleared the air completely, but just to say it right to your face so there's no ambiguity, I don't work for the Justice Democrats. I never did. I have no say whatsoever in that organization. Other than a couple representatives that pitch candidates to me over on the Jimmy Dore show, that's the only interaction with them that I've had. I don't know how or why they make some of their decisions. There's a couple things where I have no clue what the hell they're thinking. I have no clue why they didn't take Tim Canova under their wing. I have no clue why they didn't take Jim Keedy under their wing. I have no clue. To me, it seems completely backwards, but I have no say or power in that organization. I promise you. It's not my cup of tea anyway. I'm an outsider. I'm a comic. I always will be.
Yeah, and like you saw me mention on one of my more energetic followers, I'll say, was one of the ones that was getting on you about that, and you saw me mention that I have no issues with Ron. He has nothing to do with this. So yeah, I tried to clear the air where I can on that, because unfortunately there was stuff that did go on in my, like I tell people, this is specifically happened in my specific race. There's stuff that went on that people found corrupt and people found dishonest and people found concerning. But remember, don't spread this out farther than what it is, because all I was saying and all I was publicizing at the request of the Justice Democrats on Twitter to produce evidence, which I hadn't even produced. I haven't even made a big deal out of it at the time. I produced the evidence, and then it went all a different direction. So Justice Democrats as an organization is one thing. Justice Democrats' decision in my race is a different thing. So there are, I think, 4 or 5 candidates now that I've endorsed that are Justice Democrats, a couple of them before the decision for the U.S. Senate race, and 3 of them after the decision. So I have nothing against Justice Democrats candidates. The issue that I had was in my specific race. It has nothing to do with anyone outside the organization. It doesn't even have to do with Allison. It has to do with the way that they selected people in this race. So no, I don't blame Ron for anything. I don't blame Jimmy Dore for anything. Kind of blame Cenk, but there's different stuff going on there. But yeah, I mean, unilateral exclusive coverage of one candidate is what we fought against in 2016. So it's problematic when we have that now on our quote unquote progressive news media. So there's some issues that I have there. But I mean, if you're gonna be a fair news organization, then be a fair news organization. But that's my issue there. But when it comes down to Justice Democrats candidates, there's some out there that are out of this world awesome. Dottie Nygaard, awesome. So I endorsed her. Rose Calderon, I endorsed her. So I mean, you can look on their websites actually, and you'll find me on their endorsement list. So I don't have a problem with their candidates. So it's not like a Justice Democrat wide conspiracy theory against all progressive candidates. Do I think they should have done things differently? Yes. Do I think that their candidates suck? No. A lot of their candidates are awesome. They picked a lot of good people. It just comes back to a specific issue that we had between my campaign and Justice Democrats in the endorsement process, and other progressives running for that same endorsement who also didn't get it, who were also already running. That's the issue that we had.
Right. And again, I'm with you. They do have a lot of great people. I agree with that too. But some decisions, I have no clue why they did it, nor do I have any say in it. And yeah, that's a good assessment. Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time.
We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.